My apologies, this is just a little bit late. I recorded it yesterday and didn't realize I wasn't using my microphone. I was using the one that's built into the computer. I forgot to switch settings. And you can probably hear it a little bit in the background, but it's hot here. And so you could hear the fan and air conditioner and everything. It was just, I wasn't satisfied. I actually just got an email today from somebody who is currently watching part 1 of this series, and I'm going to start out with that. Now, of course, I just lost it. There we go. Sorry, I closed the wrong window. And anyway, this person asked a good question. They said, is teaching unique, or is it just like any other job or profession? And what he found is it's typical. Now, I don't know that other professions have a shortage. Some certainly do. Those are the ones you want to be in. And I think I should emphasize that when I talk about a teacher shortage and solutions, which is what I want to talk about today, this isn't a one-size-fits-all. It's not so much that we aren't creating enough teachers, because we are. It's that not enough are staying in the profession, and we're not necessarily creating teachers in the right areas. It was eye-opening to me when I went to college. I did the whole college tour thing, so toured several colleges, and a lot of them would like to break us up by major. And no footnotes for this, because this is all personal anecdote. But anyway, one of the things I noticed was when they'd break you up by major, elementary education major, so a whole herd of people would get up. English education, history education, and again, not as big a crowd as the elementary, but pretty big crowds. Math teachers, because I was going to be a math teacher at that time. And there'd be like 5 of us. Physics teachers are the same way. Chemistry teachers, you know. Biology usually had a few more in the sciences. So, part of our problem is we have a shortage in certain areas, not necessarily in the field as a whole. And then certain locations. I'm in a very rural state, and I'm in a very rural part of a very rural state. People just don't want to come here. Yes, those of you who've seen my videos where I've taken you around town a little bit, we do have pretty good business for a town our size, but it's because we're so far away from everything. I mean, it's an hour and a half for me to get to the nearest city, and, you know, city, it's Dickinson, North Dakota. It's about 20,000 people. And that's grown from what it used to be. It's what, about 90 miles away? That's not a life for everybody. Rural areas struggle, urban areas struggle. So yeah, when I talk about my solutions today, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. But anyway, to get back to this email where I wandered off the topic there, this was about how often people change jobs. And I'll tell you, it's a good point, a very good point. I'll tell you one of the differences, though, with teaching as opposed to other careers. I'm doing the same job now, essentially, as I was doing when I started working at age 22. And assuming I don't go into administration or become a guidance counselor or something, I'll be doing the same job at 65 when I retire. Teaching isn't one of those jobs where you can really better yourself. Sometimes you can get into a higher paying school district. Sometimes you get into a school district that's, you know, in a nicer town or a nicer building. Maybe you can just escape an asshole administrator. But it's not one of those jobs where you really get promoted. You're expected as a new teacher to perform as an expert, because honestly, this could be a whole video all by itself. We do not do enough teacher induction. A new teacher starts out and we expect them to do the same job as that teacher that's been in the classroom for 40 years. So that's not really going to be a motivation for job switching. It is a good point, though, that moving around is a typical thing with this generation. I did a video a couple weeks ago where I talked about my own moving around. I'm on my 4th school in 20 years of teaching. Well, 5th if you want to, 5th/6th if you want to count Pennsylvania, but those were jobs I knew were going to end. North Dakota, 4 schools in 20 years. It is a good point, which I should have responded to this email first, but I didn't. So I'm responding to it on this video, but I'll send him a note later. Actually, it's a pen pal too, so I may just add an extra page to his letter to talk about it. But yeah, I'm glad I got that email. So maybe it's just as well I had to redo this audio, even though it made this video late. Anywho, we're continuing east, on Interstate 94. I guarantee if you visit North Dakota now, it doesn't look like this because it's August and everything turns brown in August, even in the eastern end of the state, where it's much wetter than where I live. So let's dive into some possible solutions to the teacher shortage. And some of these, I'll just say, are a little bit pie in the sky. They may depend a little bit on society supporting teaching more than it does now. Some of them I don't know how we would do it. But I do know other countries have turned their education system around. I have mentioned Finland a few times. I haven't really delved too deeply into it. But Finland made some massive changes to its education system. And look at it now. But these changes were in the 70s, and one of the things I think that lesson brings to us is it's going to take time. We can't just turn this ship around overnight. This is a big ship to turn. I said ship with a P. Alright, so my first one, stop attacks on teachers and tenure. Now, how are you going to do that? Are we going to say, Mr. Limbaugh, Mr. Rush Limbaugh, it's illegal now to criticize teachers? No. But I think what we can do, if you're a parent, your kid is going to have some pretty bad teachers. Do you need to criticize the teachers or the school in front of the kid? Because what you're doing is you're undermining it, and you're whether you mean to or not, you're sending the message to the kid that you don't value education, that it's not important, that you criticize it. And nothing wrong with criticizing, but this is one that could really start in the home. I wish media would more, instead of demonizing teachers as a whole, would look at individual cases, would actually look at the good things schools do once in a while, maybe do a more nuanced approach into what's going on. I don't know how you get media to do that. I don't think nuance really is the thing in our current media. That could be a whole video by itself, but short version, sound bites as media, you need punchy, you need quick, you need a villain, you need a hero, and done. Move on to the next story. You don't have time for nuance with the way our media market is, and to be fair, the media is responding to what viewers want. Viewers who want a more nuanced approach don't make them the money. That's why, and I'm not going to single out any one network because I think they're all guilty of this. That's part of why I no longer, that's part of why I no longer have TV, is that it's all show, it's all emotion. If they can get people shouting at each other, shouting over each other, get in a couple of sound bites, that's the news. Now, attacks on tenure, yes, we can do something about that. And I teach in a state that does not have teacher tenure. Now, The criticism of tenure is makes it impossible to fire a good teacher. Fire a bad teacher. That's a myth. Let me tell you about firing a teacher. There is a process to go through to do it. People don't like it. People want an instant solution. Administrators get lazy, and instead of following the process, they try and skip steps. And then the union steps in and says, "Oh, no. Due process, man." And so the result is you end up, to the outside, it looks like, oh, you can't fire a bad teacher. You know, I've had parents ask me to be fired. You know, the school, and that's what it's all set up to do, is to protect you from that, so that you get due process, so that the school actually investigates, to give a poor teacher a chance to actually improve, instead of firing them over it. That's what tenure is about. Like I said, if the administrator is lazy and doesn't follow due process, or doesn't want to go through the steps and just put up with this teacher, yeah, then it'll look bad. But tenure by itself is not the problem. You know, as one commenter on my last video mentioned, tenure protects teachers when teachers advocate for their students and administrators don't want them advocating for the student. Because if you don't have any job protection, you're not going to take a risk for a student. You're not going to risk a new teaching method. You're just going to lay low. And another one from that same source that they mentioned, and we're going through this in North Dakota, evaluation systems shouldn't be designed to fire teachers, and they need to be simpler. You know, I mentioned our trouble with superintendent here. Right at the moment we have what we're calling a interim superintendent or assistant superintendent. He's a retired gentleman. He doesn't live here. He just comes down to our town a few days a week. Apparently has relatives or somebody he can stay with to make it financially feasible. But he made a remark that I like, that one of the things you need to do with a weaker teacher is help them. Which actually brings you back to Linda. I wrote Linda Darling Hammond's point, and I'm trying to remember what the heck that point was. Yeah, I'm not seeing it real quick. Apparently when I was writing my notes I knew what that would mean. I don't anymore. But a lot of teachers do want to do a good... Oh, that was it! A lot of teachers do want to do a good job. They just maybe don't necessarily have the skills to do so. Why not help them get those skills? Most of us can learn. Most of us improve a lot. I've said before, I apologize to you if you were one of my early students, because I was awful as a teacher. As far as the rest of it, yeah, it seemed they talk about firing the lowest 15% of teachers, whatever that means. Well, there's so many variables there. You know, are we going to fire doctors in West Virginia because they have too many fat patients? I don't mean to pick on West Virginia, but that's one of the more obese states, and we won't point too many fingers because North Dakota's trying hard to catch up. But, you know, we're not going to say, oh, doctors in West Virginia are worse than doctors in Colorado because patients in West Virginia get more heart disease. Well, no, it's because there's more obesity. You know, if I live in a community that values education, I'm going to get better results than if I live in a community that does not value education. If I have a school with good resources, I'm more likely to get better results than if I'm in a school that doesn't have good resources. And just year by year, one year I may just get one of those classes that you go, yipe! And then other years, you look good. You know, so the whole idea behind firing a teacher should not be what evaluation's all about. It should be about looking for areas to improve. And the other thing is simpler. You know, the system that we had was kind of silly. They had to come in and watch 1 or 2 lessons the full way through. The administrator had to come in. And then they'd write a narrative. You'd talk about it, you'd sign it, and done. Well, then, I don't know that they got much out of that. If they tell you they're coming in, you invent a lesson. I remember teaching in one school. The principal came in and I was doing a lab, and he says, "Well, I'll come back when you're actually teaching." What? Labs are teaching. Well, anyway, the newer system, they have to make a lot of visits at various times to your classroom, just short visits. Do a little write-up on each one. Then you have to evaluate. It's many, many pages of self-evaluation, and they have to go through all the pages. What a lot of administrators do is they just agree with you and give you the same ratings because it's less work. So I'll tell you what I do. I generally know my areas where I'm weaker and my areas where I'm stronger. And I don't want to rate myself too high, but I don't want to rate myself too low. So I tend to rate myself average, give myself a couple of low areas, maybe even unfairly low, just so I have some areas like that. I give myself a few super high ratings just to balance them out. It's stupid. It doesn't really help. So yeah, the valuation system could use some improvement. And North Dakota is not as bad as some of the others where they're even tying test scores into teacher evaluations. So yeah, you want to be a music teacher in those states because you don't get tested on music. Another solution this is more of a school thing. School by school needs to look at this. Focus on retention. 8% of teachers leave every year. In other countries, it's like 3 to 4%. And the article I mentioned last time about Linda Darling Hammond noted that if we could get down to 3 to 4% leaving every year, that would solve the teacher shortage problem with what we have now. Another one that would, in that same source, teachers who are well prepared leave at a rate 2/3 lower than those who are less prepared. Now, what you find in government, and North Dakota has dabbled with this, although they've held firm in core areas, but they've dabbled with it in some of the, like, shop and those kind of classes, having lower qualifications for coming in to teach. Well, you bring in, Teach for America. That's a program where you're a college graduate and you in whatever, and you volunteer to teach and you take some classes on teaching. Well, what this does is it actually exacerbates the problem, because since they're less prepared, they're less likely to stay, and so we have to hire another less prepared teacher. Oh, I mentioned at the beginning, I don't think we spend enough time preparing teachers. I had to student teach for about a semester. I didn't even teach all of that. Part of it was observations. We need to start getting teachers in the classroom freshman year. We need to have them teaching. We need to have them working with another teacher. And after they graduate from college and they've done their student teaching, we need some kind of like a residency thing. A much better student teaching. A lot more time where maybe they start taking over more and more classes. Like I said, what we do is after they are done with college, we hand them the keys. Maybe teaching even needs to be a master's degree profession nationwide to get that more time to prepare and learn how to teach, because it takes a lot of practice. And I look at Japan and how they prepare teachers and the amount of time they spend. Teachers will get together to discuss lessons, and they'll plan lessons as a team, model lessons. And then the whole team will go observe one teacher teaching the lesson. And then they'll critique the lesson. We need more of that. We just don't have that here. I know I wasn't ready to take over, especially when I teaching 6 different classes all in one day. And I think that would go to my point that I made about the email. Make teaching a more leveled profession. Maybe I'm at that age now where I have a full load of teaching. Maybe when I'm toward the end of my career, my job becomes more about supervising teachers and some of those incoming teachers, giving them those chances to prepare lessons under a lot more guidance than they do now. We really don't have that. Right now, I was asked to supervise a student teacher in my 4th year of teaching. I was smart enough to say no. But that shows you how desperate they are. And how poorly our student teacher system works. That would also mean some changes to the principal's role, which I think would be good, because I think in a small school, especially where there is only one principal, they're given too many things to do and not enough time to actually do them. One of the reasons why I'm not too excited about the idea of administration. But I think, several levels of teaching would be great. Maybe by the time I retire, I'm only teaching 1 or 2 classes because I'm supervising new teachers. Admittedly, in this rural setting where I'm at, that's tougher to do realistically than you could do it in a city, but I think generally that's where it has to go. And again, I'll just reiterate it. Help rather than punish teachers who aren't doing a good job. Actually take the time to help them, work with them, get them to take classes. And again, that's where that mentoring thing and that graduated level of teaching would come in also. Because most do want to do a good job. It's no fun going to work every day and going, I suck. By the way, I'm pulling into Jamestown here. I needed gas. And I'll clean the windshield off for you here in Jamestown too. And another thing that schools have to realize now, they can't just wait for job applicants. There's not enough out there that you can wait for them to come to you. You have to go out and recruit. And that's a lot harder, especially because of FERPA and some privacy rules. It's really hard to find out who they are and where they are. But there are things such as job fairs you can go to, being really aggressive about contacting colleges, being really aggressive about marketing your school, and yeah, getting student teachers into your school. Maybe that student teacher won't come work at your school, but they'll go out and they'll say, hey, yeah, this school here where I student taught was just awesome. Well, that kind of marketing will get you teachers. And if you're in a rural area or a small town school, this probably looks terrifying on the dash cam. I know it looks terrifying to me, but I had to get to that pump and yeah. But anyway, emphasize the cozy aspects of a small town school. Yeah, we don't have lots of restaurants, we don't have lots of things to do, but you get to know the whole family. You will teach several siblings. If you're here long enough, you will teach the kids of your students. You'll get to know grandparents. You'll know what families these kids are coming from. You will know your colleagues. Your whole school will be kind of like a family. Those are all positive aspects of a rural area that you can emphasize. It's quiet here. I posted on Instagram a video from my garden, just a short 1-minute video. I left in the natural noises of doves and bees and a little bit of wind. Very quiet and peaceful. That's a perk of a small town. And another thing we really need to do, and I would blame the teachers union for some of this, we need to do a better job as teachers emphasizing the positive aspects of teaching. It's really depressing for me to talk to somebody about my job and they say, well, you're the first teacher I've run into that actually likes his job. No, I'm not. But why are teachers going out and complaining all the time and making it sound like a really horrible job? You're scaring people out of it. So yeah, we need to do a better job marketing June, July, and August. The vacations, the fact that your job hours match your kids' hours, the stability of your job. Those are all things we should be emphasizing. The chance to, I hate to be corny, but the chance to touch lives. The chance to really change the future of human beings. To change the future of your country and your state and your town. It feels good when somebody who's in their 30s comes and thanks you for the great job you did teaching. That somebody is showing that you did something. It doesn't happen too often. Most of us don't go back and thank our teachers. Even I'm guilty too. I thanked a couple of them, but most of them no. We hear too much about the bad parts of teaching, which I'm guilty of doing that with this video, but I feel like this is more of an informative video than it is a rant. Gates Foundation did a survey that said, this is a big one, because, yeah, I could tell you some hair-raising stories here. 68% of teachers will stay due to supportive leadership. Only 34% said it was due to higher salaries. I have learned that supportive leadership matters a lot. I've had asshole administrators. I had one who would yell at me in the hallway or in my classroom in front of kids if a parent complained. That's not supportive leadership. That's bad leadership. And I'll tell you what. I left. And then when I left, he called me names. He called me ungrateful. Yeah, I wasn't sorry to leave that place at all. I've had weak principals. I've had some that do the whole passive-aggressive thing, where they're really talking to one person, but they can't go face that person, so they just send it to everybody, and they hope that one person reads it. Well, generally, that one person doesn't really care, or else they wouldn't be doing it. The rest of us are thinking, was it me? So, yeah, good leadership is important. And that's one of the things that's even made me consider someday becoming a principal, is that possibly I could be that good leader. I'm trying to make this a little bit shorter, and I just turned the page to a slightly different topic. This one was looking more at salary. So I think I want to leave it off here rather than dive into salary today. But here's what I want to leave you with. I have left schools because of the principal or the superintendent. I've left... Okay, yeah. Because the principal or superintendent, basically. One was kind of school board, but, the administration was leaving then too, so yeah, whatever. I have stayed here longer, mainly because it's been a decent, not always amazing, but decent leadership, where I felt reasonably supported. And, I also know some teachers have left here because they were not supported by their administrator. That administrator is now gone, so I feel like I can say that much about him. But that support is really important because in this job, parents are going to complain. And if your leadership doesn't have your back, who will have your back? Now, that doesn't mean teachers can't make mistakes and that I haven't made mistakes. But there's a right and a wrong way to handle it. Parents want to hear about teachers being punished. Saw that at a school board meeting. Why won't you tell us what you did about it? Well, because they can't legally tell you what was done about it. All they can say is that the situation was handled, and by the way, this shouldn't be coming up to a school board meeting anyway. This is, and when you mess up, that leader needs to come to you and tell you what you've messed up and do something to deal with it. Perhaps it's a punishment. Often it's, don't do it again. It's... Anyway, what I'm trying to say is supportive leadership is going to support you through good times and bad, and support doesn't mean ignoring bad things that have happened. They do this to the bridges every spring in North Dakota, which is probably good because they're keeping them safe. But anyway, a good supervisor can tell you what you're doing well and what you're not doing well. And they should actually have some idea what you're doing. Now, they're not in your classroom every day, at least I hope not, but they should know generally what's going on in your classroom. Oh, well, this is the classroom where the kids generally behave. This is the classroom where they don't. Oh, in this classroom, they're often doing activities. In this classroom, it's mostly lecture. And, like I said, when a complaint comes, pull you into the office, discuss it privately. And absolutely never, never, never undermine the teacher in front of the kids or the parents. So I'm going to leave it there, and next week we'll pick it up with some stuff on salary. But again, that was a interesting email I got about the changing jobs is a generational thing. For better or for worse, I don't see any harm in wanting to better your situation. I've done it myself. But there is no denying that there is a teacher shortage, and getting people to stay in the profession would be one of the ways to solve it. And I think, to the point that that article made, having a system of teaching, a leveled system of teaching, where you start out as a resident or intern and gradually take on more responsibility. You know, maybe being a para-educator could be part of that internship, because, wow, what an opportunity to be in a number of classes. And what a way to improve the quality of para-educators. I just thought of that one just now, so yeah. And also, what an opportunity to work with a underserved population. That might be a way to get more people interested in special education, which is a shortage, another shortage area. And I think somehow we need to find a way to get teachers into the specific areas where there's a shortage. What can we do? And I didn't find a lot about this, but what can we do to get people into math, science, foreign language, special education that we're not doing right now? What would make those areas more appealing? And hey, if you're a teacher, don't be such a downer on your profession. Talk about the good parts. Don't complain about it all the time. Like one of my superintendents said, if you have a problem, deal with it here. Don't go shouting it around the bar or the restaurant downtown. Actually, teachers there didn't go to the bar at all, so it was a different sort of culture there in that town. But, you know, the point was, don't blare it around town. Actually come to the school and deal with it. And that's something we could all do better at. Even if you're not a teacher, you could probably do better at that. And show the kids that you actually like your job. Look like you're enjoying your job. That's one of those undersung things that's going to make people think about teaching as a career, that, oh, my teachers actually like coming to work every day. They like what they do, instead of looking like you hate it. And some days, you just have to fake it. Pretend like you're having a good time, even though you just want to reach out and touch someone aggressively. And you can't do that either, because that will get you fired. Unless you're in certain schools down south where they still paddle, but that's another video. So, I'm at the end of this clip, so I think we'll close it here. We'll pick it up next week. We'll get through Valley City and may even get into Fargo. We'll see. And I will talk about the salary end of the story. So thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.